and it's reminiscent of the Loire, but really still like bold and Santa Barbara County as well. Yeah, so those are my three.
I'm really happy you said the Cab Franc, because we are going to be putting in our wine club the Cab Franc in, I believe, our December shipment, which is coming up next month. And definitely, I mean, my husband and I, we sat and did a tasting with Gretchen a couple of months ago. When was that? Whenever that was, at least a couple of months ago. And obviously love all of her wines, but that Cab Franc is really, really special. And it's also one of my favorite varieties. And I find that in terms of wine education, that is one of the easiest grapes for me anyways to teach about, probably mostly because it has such defining characteristics that pop out on my palate more so than any other grape variety. I mean, in all kinds of red varieties, we get, the blue fruit, the black fruit, the red fruit, some spices, and, notes from the oak. But without fail, Cab Franc always just like slaps me in the face with either bell pepper or jalapeno. And your wine, I feel like, is so perfectly expressive of what I believe a Cab Franc should be. And so, yeah, if any of you haven't had a chance to try her Cab Franc, either join my wine club and you'll get it next month, or go directly to Gretchen and buy it from her, because it's unbelievable, and it demands to be drank for sure. So my last, well, there's two more questions that I have, but this is a question that I'm going to ask of also Heather and Sonja, so you can prepare if you want. And then we'll go ahead and ask you some questions, or get questions from the audience, Gretchen. But so it's a two-part question. And this is a question that I'm going to carry throughout my entire series, because I think it's such an interesting question. And I think that we'll all probably have slightly different answers. But it's, what does it mean to you to be a woman in wine? And how have you experienced, and what have you experienced from your wine community that differentiates your experience from anyone else's?
Yeah, so my experience is probably a little slightly different than other people, because I do have a few male mentors. I've never felt, by no means is it lost on me that the privilege of being a woman as a winemaker in the industry. However, I have had unbelievable male mentors that have really lifted me up in my career, and pushed me to be as far along as I am at my young age. And it's really amazing that, again, not only do we have such an amazing female community in Santa Barbara County, but we just have such a supportive, amazing wine community in general, in my experience. And then in addition to that, as you mentioned in the beginning, just the bond and the support of women within the industry as well. It's funny because right before COVID all started, literally the last thing we got to do together was the Women in Wine event. And it was so wonderful, and a kind of a really beautiful way to like be the last little amazing celebration before we're all locked down for who knows how long. And every time we get together, it's always such engaging conversations, and such an exciting atmosphere. So I just really feel so privileged. And I know I've been to a few Women in Wine events outside of our community, and it really makes you appreciate it all that much more, because I never have worked in Napa or Sonoma or any of those places, but talking to the women that are in that position up there, they really have a different experience, and they really have had to fight for every little thing along the way. And a lot of the times the conferences I go to talk about that a lot, and I feel so lucky to not really relate to that. So
yeah, that is a very similar experience that I have had also. I have worked for female winemakers before, but I've also worked for male winemakers, and for the most part, everyone is, like you said, extremely, extremely supportive of anyone, no matter who you are or what you are. And actually my friend Dusty Nabor and his partner Karin, they're on here as well. They both make wine for the Dusty Nabor wine label and Bolt 2 and NSO, and they have helped me unbelievably so much, especially in the last year, that it's I'm happy you're here. But it's also really cool that both men and women are here to support each other, and that's also a huge shout out for this Women in Wine series that I'm looking to put together. Is it's not just women, it's everyone who supports women, no matter who you are. And so I'm really happy that you've had that experience, and it's so cool that you worked for Ryan. That's awesome. So my last question is, and I'm also going to ask this to both Heather and Sonja, but where else can we find your wines? How can we contact you? How can we follow you on social media?
So lunahartwines.com is the website, and you can order wines online there. And during COVID, I've been offering free shipping for 3 bottles or more, and I'll deliver it locally. I just started, I've been at Piazza Family Wines in Ballard Canyon for the past 1.5 years, and we're just to the point now where we're launching Piazza, and also I'm running Luna Hart out of there, and you can come taste with me with either brand or both brands. I do little mixed tastings as well, and I'm really thrilled to share the property with everybody and show you my new little garage facility and everything that I'm doing there. And then there's several little wine bars, all of the little wine bars that support natural wines and small winemakers pretty much carry my wines as well.
Well, thank you so much, Heather. And if any of you didn't notice, I'm sorry, Gretchen, Heather put your website in the chat box. So if you want to check that out, the link is there for you guys. And then just before we leave Luna Heartland, does anyone have any questions? Like I said, you're welcome to interrupt us, but do you have any questions?
I was just going to hop in and say I texted Geena earlier when we broke into this bottle before the tasting, because
it was 5:30.
It's this week, man. Like,
I'm surprised anyone has wine left.
Like, how is it Thursday? I don't know. It's like that. But it's so delicious. I love rosé in general, but I feel like it's super unique and just really fun. And like Geena was saying, like, it's a great fall rosé. Like, I would drink this at noon, or like a Dr. Seuss wine.
Yeah.
Drink this any time of the day or night or season.
I have a quick question for Gretchen.
Yeah.
So I was just reading the notes that say that it was natively fermented very slowly over the course of 6 months in stainless.
Mm-hmm.
So did you cold ferment it?
Yeah, and actually, to be completely honest with you guys, this wine was a challenge for me, and it tested my patience. I've never had a quote-unquote stuck wine, which means that the yeast just quit for whatever reason, whether it gets too cold, there's not enough nutrition, or the alcohol is too high, whatever it might be. And this wine was dang near close, and it might have been a function of putting it in the cold room too early or low nutrition in the wine, but it kind of put me to the test and made me ask for the protocol on how to restart a wine. But ultimately I decided to just have patience, and I'm so glad that I did, because it really did just equal itself out in the end. But yes, it was fermented. I do a little bit of a dance in the cellar between our ambient cellar temperature, which depending on the weather could be a little bit warm, but still coolish. And then our barrel room, which is about 58 to 60 degrees.
And so it ferments in stainless and then ages in stainless, and then so is it from beginning to end 6 months?
It ended up being 6 months.
And then it went into bottle.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Cool. It's fantastic. It's delicious.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, again, there'll be more time for questions at the end, but I wanted to move us along. So next we're going to talk to Heather from Craft and Cluster. So all of you guys, well, most of you guys with the exception of 2 people, have her gorgeous photos in front of you. If you've already framed them and hung them up on the wall, please show us, because that's my plan anyways. But so Heather is a wine photographer, a social media marketing consultant, and a soon-to-be podcast queen. Yes, I'm putting pressure on you, Heather, because I want to be on that podcast too. But so my first question is, since we all have those gorgeous photos that you took, can you tell us a little bit about them, and what was your inspiration behind them? What have you experienced of those photos since you've taken them?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'll have to describe them to you. I think my screen sharing's disabled. I'd love to be able to actually show them for the folks who don't have the photos in front of them. Do you have a way to enable screen sharing?
Yes.
Me? That way I can open up these photos for you guys.
I think I can transfer.
Just make her a co-host, Geena.
Mine is on for some reason.
It might be.
Okay.
I'm happy to pull up your image if you'd like. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Hooray. Okay. So thank you so much, Geena. Yeah, so as Geena said, I am a wine photographer. I've been in the wine industry, gosh, for 10 years now. I started in the tasting room, and then I went to Oregon State University to get my horticulture degree, which I'm apparently not using anymore. So over the years, I've worked variously in the tasting room, in wineries, and then most recently, before I started Craft and Cluster, I was working for a vineyard management company locally, which is called Coastal Vineyard Care. And they manage about, I want to say like 50 to 60 vineyards in the valley, which is quite a lot. And so I got very familiar with the vineyards in all across the valley. One of my favorite vineyards, and one of the vineyards that I was able to visit often and photograph often, is John Sebastiano Vineyard, which is this one that you're seeing here. I love this vineyard. It's in the Santa Rita Hills. It's off of Route 246, and it's one of, I think, the most like hilly vineyards. I mean, aside from the Salsipuedes vineyards, it's one of the most hilly vineyards in Santa Rita Hills. And so it really, like, you can see like the scope and terrain, and it's really just a beautiful vineyard. This spot is what we refer to as the Gauntlet, which is you can actually drive right through those rows. And it's just, I don't know, like there's just something about it. Like every time I go to John Sebastiano now, I photograph this spot. And so this particular photo was captured earlier this year in January. And I had a fellow wine photographer named Adam Decker, who's amazing. He was visiting me, and so we went out for what I like to call a sunset photography session, where we just like go out and capture sunset photos for fun. And this was my favorite photo out of that session, and it's one that I like. It's my computer screen background on my desktop, and it's one that I like stare at often. I'm so excited that you guys get to enjoy this photo. It just, I don't, this is during the winter, so it's very, the vines are sleeping, they're dormant, and it just goes to show that even when the vineyards are sleeping and they're not green, it's still, Santa Barbara County is still one of the most beautiful areas, in my opinion, in the world. And then this other photo, this is from Fe Ciega Vineyard, which is also in the Santa Rita Hills, but it's off of a road called Sweeney Road. But the way that you're looking here is it's facing La Encantada Vineyard, which is right here. And La Encantada Vineyard is right next to Sanford Winery, just so you guys can orient yourself. It's right off Santa Rosa Road. And Fe Ciega Vineyard is made up of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. I captured this photo while on assignment with Foxen Winery, which Foxen gave me my very first job in the wine industry, and so I have a very deep connection with them and deep love for them, and they can't seem to get rid of me anyways. So, and so we went out to Feisiega, which is just this like beautiful, magical little 8-acre vineyard. And I love it because you get up to the very top of Feisiega and you look out over the Santa Rita Hills and you can just see the entire valley. If you were to turn around, like if you were standing in this spot here, and to turn around off to the left, you would see Sea Smoke Vineyard and Mount Carmel off in the distance. So it's really, you can really just see quite a lot of the Santa Rita Hills from this spot. So these are just two of my favorite vineyards to photograph for those reasons, just because you can see so much of them. So I'm gonna do that. Yeah, so that's that.
So beautiful. And it took me a while. I was staring at the first one of the John Sebastiano vineyard, and it took me a while to notice the bird in the right-hand corner, the top right-hand corner. I thought it was dirt at first, and I was like, oh no, the photo's damaged. But I noticed it gives such a different perspective, and I feel like it's such a good like point of focus, even though the object is definitely like the rest of the vineyard and the gorgeous lighting and like how soft the green, like lush hillsides look. But the bird, that like I would stare at that photo. I have been staring at that photo so much because of the bird, and it's such an interesting kind of like departure from the rest of the vineyard. And I think it also gives like really good spatial context for like, okay, see how tiny that bird is and how expansive and gorgeous the land is. And I think it's also a really good depiction of our wine country here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm mesmerized by that photo, and I can't wait to get my photo because I do plan on hanging those up, and they're just gorgeous. So for everyone who has the tasting sheet in front of you, Heather and I talked earlier this week, and I asked her what her top 3 tips for photography are. So Heather, I was wondering if we can go through those. I'll read them off, and then you can talk about them one by one. So she said, 1, watch your lighting. Take photos in the shade or inside next to a north-facing window or at golden hour. That's probably preferable. 2, composition is important. 3, tell a story and give context for that image. Tell us a little bit more about that, Heather.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, just to give you a little, definition in English lesson here, photography literally translates to light drawing. So photo meaning light, and then graph meaning drawing. And so the 2 most important parts of photography, and anytime, like if you were to go take a photography class at a community college, this is always the place that people start, and it's because they are the 2 things that are the most important, and that is you need to have good lighting and that you need to have good composition. So for lighting, the reason I recommend photographing either in the shade or inside near a north-facing or south-facing window is because that's when you're going to get the most even light. If you're photographing on a really sunny day at midday and you're like out in the middle of the sun, you're going to get a lot of really harsh shadows, and you're going to have to be contending with that. So photographing in the shade, it just gives you a little bit more even light, a little bit more diffusion of that light. And then, and something I didn't mention in that is that you can also photograph on an overcast day. I know that a lot of people, they think that overcast days, like the light is terrible, but it's actually one of the best lighting situations that you can get into, especially if you're photographing a person, like if you're doing portraits. Photographing during an overcast day is perfect because what that does is that cloud layer actually diffuses the light and makes the shadows really soft, and so they're not as harsh, and you're getting just a little bit more focus on your subject. And then of course at golden hour, that is, you'll hear a lot of photographers talking about golden hour or magic hour, which is actually 30 minutes. It's usually the 30 minutes before sunset or the 30 minutes after sunrise. So it's basically when the sun is at a lower angle in the sky. And so once again, you're not going to be contending with like harsh shadows from the sun from above. You'll be getting just something a little softer and a little lighter. And then of course the light itself, the way that the sun is refracting light, you're going to get that really pretty golden glow. I also really like photographing at blue hour, which is the 30 minutes after the sun has crossed below the horizon, or the 30 minutes before sunrise, because then you get that really beautiful blue and almost pink quality to your photos. So those tend to be really, really lovely. That photo of John Sebastiano Vineyard was captured, and actually also of Faciega, those were both captured at golden hour, just before sunset. So those are, as if you're looking at them, the light is just a little softer. You're not getting really harsh shadows. So you can pick up some more details. And then also for composition, so I'm gonna share my screen with you again, just so I can demonstrate this a little bit better. So for composition, you're gonna want to work within the rule of thirds. And so the rule of thirds states, this is the kind of one of the most important compositional like things that you'll learn. The rule of thirds states that you can split your photograph into three sections, either horizontally or laterally. No, horizontally or longitudinally. Vertically, thank you. English is hard today. And the idea behind that is that you're going to be pulling focus to a specific part of your photo. And so it helps the eye move across the photo in a really natural way. And it also makes people feel just a little bit uncomfortable, which kind of like jazzes up the photo a little bit more. So this photo is actually a really good example of the rule of thirds, because you could actually split this photo into 9 different squares. So you could split it here and then also here, and you have the sky up here, you have your mountains here, and then you have the vineyard here. And then you could also split it this way and have, kind of there's really not too much going on over here, but then over here, this is where you're getting quite a lot of the action. And then this photo is also showing a different side of composition, which is leading lines. And so using something like, in this case, vineyard rows to help point your eye, move your eye across the image and point you to a specific subject. What I would say for this one is the best, like if I were to do this photo again, I would maybe throw like a winemaker right down here or a vineyard manager right down here and have your eye be moving straight to that subject and have them be the subject. And then this one is also a really good example of the rule of thirds. So you have, you'll have your main subject, which is right here almost in the center. But then again, you have your leading lines, which are kind of moving your eye across the page and leading you across into this photo and inviting you into the photo and inviting you into the scene. And then of course, just a little side note, that is a red-tailed hawk, and John Sebastiano Vineyard has a huge population actually of red-tailed hawks. They like to nest there, so that's just a fun little side note for you. So composition and then of course lighting are the 2 most important things, but then I always like to throw in storytelling as the 3rd crucial element of a good photograph, because the entire idea of photos is to help invite you into a scene. And so I always like to think of, what's the story that I'm trying to tell here? With these photos of the vineyard, the story is literally just, this is a beautiful vineyard, I'm inviting you into it. And my goal is to make sure that you feel that you can see yourself in that place. But for, say, if you're photographing a bottle of wine, adding like, you know, a little bit of movement with it, like having, instead of having it just be like a bottle of wine, have that photo be you pouring into a glass. That invites people into the story as well, especially if it's maybe like just a hand, you're not seeing the actual person pouring the glass. That helps the viewer see themselves, like maybe imagine themselves as the bottle. They can start feeling the bottle in their hand. They're like, oh, it's kind of cold. It's a little bit wet because it's been in the fridge and now it's, you know, precipitating. Like it's so you can give the story a little bit more, or the photo a little bit more context. When you're photographing a little too close, you tend to lose what the context is. So if you're just getting right up into something, like if you're just like, okay, here's this bottle, you know, that doesn't really tell a story. And so you want to make sure that you're inviting people into the story. So really thinking about that. So yeah.
That was amazing. How long did it take you to like pull, like you speak so easily. And so just in case anyone isn't following Heather, if you're not, you should be. Her Instagram is Heather.
Craft and Cluster.
Thank you.
I'll put it in the chat box.
Yeah. And so she does these amazing Tuesday tips is what she calls them. And they are Instagram lives. And it's also really interactive. And each week she has kind of a different theme. And of course, she's focusing on marketing and photography because that's her business. But for me, it's been like unbelievably inspiring. And I feel like she's that like kind of like person on my shoulder being like, you should do this differently because you're doing it wrong right now, in a nice way. But in case any of you have your own businesses or you're just looking on improving your own private personal social media pages, it's really helpful. And she's so welcoming, and she always asks for, you know, questions from the audience, and they're always also really engaging as well. So it's cool because I feel like through watching your Tuesday tips, I've learned a lot, but I've also watched you kind of learn about yourself and your own business. And it's just really cool. So I've heard a little bit about these in some of your Tuesday tips, but it's cool to kind of have the photography 101 all up front. And I am excited because Erin and I will be doing a photo session for our business with Heather next week. And I'm excited to see how she kind of tells our story through these images. But so my next question is, and this is the women in wine question, so I'll read it again.
Yeah. Can I interrupt really quickly?
Yes, yeah. And if anyone has any questions, please jump in.
Heather is so awesome. She's extraordinarily talented. She is so dedicated to what she does. It's really like, it's a thrill to watch her and to work with her. And she is so in tune with what's going on, and then also so open to absorbing everything else and adjusting the mood and the tone and the shift to sort of the clients that she works with. It's just, you know, of all of the people that I've worked with, you're just awesome. And it's been an awesome treat. So if you haven't worked with Heather, like, you must, because she rules. That's it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Sonja.
I will.
It made me cry a little bit.
No, Heather commercial.
Lady Love, it's good. That's really cool. And I know that there's I count at least 3 other female winemakers that are in this chat as well. I will call you guys out. Sunshine Stricker and Natalie Albertson and Julia Weinberg. And then, like I said, Dusty and Karin, his partner, they're winemakers as well. But Heather does focus on the wine industry, but I know that you also do lifestyle photo sessions as well. So all of you, please reach out to her in any capacity. She's amazing. And definitely even worth just a chat. It's been lovely.
Thank you so much.
So I'm not letting you off the hook just yet. So almost, I promise not to stop bugging you. But so my big question for you, and I just love this question because I've gotten a lot of really interesting responses. But so what does it mean to you to be a woman in wine? And what have you experienced from your wine community that differentiates your experience from anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Gretchen said. Of course, I had a slightly different experience than Gretchen, but overall, I would say the theme has been just immense, incredible support and love, which is what drew me to the wine industry in the first place. You know, I had originally wanted to be a photographer, and it eventually ended up that way. But when I ended up leaving art school because I found the wine industry, and I found the wine industry to be so supportive. And so that's the community that I've built and that I've been welcomed into in the wine industry has been incredible. And so I will say that just a huge amount of support. That said, I have had my fair share of negative situations with some men in the industry. My very first wine job was perfect, and I worked for Foxen, and Billy Wathen is the most incredible man alive, and so I felt very spoiled. I felt by him because I was like, everyone's going to treat me like this, everyone's going to support me, and then I ended up moving to Oregon to finish my degree. And of course, you know, the men I worked for, the owners of the wineries were wonderful. But I did have a particular situation where I was, you know, I had originally got my degree, I wanted to be a vineyard manager. And I worked for Willamette Valley Vineyards at the time. And the winemaker at the time, he's no longer with the company, I sat down with a meeting with him and was basically like, I want to apply for a viticulturalist position with you. And I was just about to graduate, and he told me to my face that he would never hire a woman because no one would take me seriously. And it was heartbreaking. And I wish that I could go back and tell, you know, young Heather that, you know, I don't need his approval and I'm going to be successful regardless. But it definitely bruised me in a way that was really hard to recover from, because I was like, well, if he feels this way, then of course, you know, the rest of the wine world's going to feel that way. And of course, which it wasn't true at all. You know, I again had plenty of just like Gretchen, had plenty of male mentors who are so supportive, and but it was heartbreaking. It was not. There's a lot of work that needs to be done for sure. Particularly within the wine industry, within the world, but within the wine industry in particular, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And you know, I'm happy to say that you know, that winemaker was let go from that position shortly after that conversation. And you know, and the, you know, the owner of the winery of Willamette Valley Vineyards, Jim Bernot, who's just a charismatic dude. He's a wonderful person. He, you know, I told him of my experience, and he created a welcoming environment in which I felt safe to share that experience, which is really important. So I think maybe the key takeaway from this whole thing is that if, you know, we need to be making safe spaces and welcoming spaces for women and minorities, people of color, to share situations that are not safe for them and not cool. Not like, that's not very, you know, that wasn't a very nice thing for me to hear. And, you know, of course, now I know that he's dead wrong, and that I could have easily gone on to conquer the world had I chose to do that. But you know, it was very heartbreaking. I'm still, yeah, just a slightly adjacent job from what I had originally thought I was going to be doing.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, yes, a slightly more intense experience than I think some other, but also again, you know, I'm fortunate in that the vast majority of my experience as a woman in the wine industry has been very welcoming, and I've felt very supported. And I mean, just the fact that I was able to pivot into a slightly different career path than I had planned for myself, and still be successful and still be welcomed within the wine circle, is really, it speaks volumes to especially Santa Barbara wine country as a whole. It speaks volumes. So.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for being so candid and so open about that experience, because you're definitely not alone. As positive and as excited as we all want to be about this wine community, it's can still be kind of a toxic, negative space for some people sometimes. Again, not always. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important, and you and I were talking about this separately. I think it's really, really important to share those stories, because it's a little weird to talk about negative stuff, but I think it's so important, because everyone has negative experiences in every aspect of their lives, and it normalizes an uncomfortable feeling and the sharing of those feelings. So thank you. That's really, really, I'm really touched that you shared that. And he deserved to get fired. That's dumb.
Yeah. He was not a great person.
Yeah. Well, so Heather, can you please tell us about where to find you? We'll put your website in the chat. Instagram, how can we book a photo session with you? All the good stuff.
Yeah, so my website is craftandcluster.com, and there, you know, if you want to book a photo session with me, you just hit book now, and you can contact me with your information. If you're looking for help with your social media, I do one-on-one social media coaching sessions, but I am also coming up with an online course, which will be focused on the wine industry as a whole, but it's going to be called the Instagram Field Guide. And I will be teaching you how to market your wine business on Instagram. But of course, all of this information is translatable to any industry. So if you just need help with Instagram, marketing your business on Instagram, I can help you. And then if you want more prints, like if you want a metal print like I have right behind me, I do offer those as well. And again, you can find that on my website. But for daily communications, just follow me on Instagram. I'm always there, and I'm always happy to chat in the DMs. So.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Heather? Again, you can ask questions at the end, but in case you have any burning questions right now.
I have so many, but I'm gonna wait. I'll hit Heather up later.
Yeah, you and Hart really need to connect with Heather big time.
No, I know Heather. I just every time she does a photography lesson, I'm like, wait, and I want to know so much more. But I think that I should pay her for that level of knowledge, and I will connect with her later. So there.
Awesome. Okay, well, and I'm apologizing right now. I thought we'd roll through this in an hour, but we have one more amazing, amazing woman. So thank you all for coming in tonight. And I know it's a weird week. I know we're all kind of on the edge of our seats, no matter who you are, where you are.
Do we have the president yet, since we've been talking?
Seriously. If anyone has any updates, please feel free to help.
No, I have no idea.
I just want to say that Eddie Carden.
Georgia is down to like 1,900 votes.
They're saying it could flip within the hour.
We're
Oh shit!
Oh my God.
I'll get us off, but we need more wine before we can leave.
Let me just say something before we go to this delicious red. Eddie, whatever you guys are drinking out of, it looks like you're drinking out of red Solo cups. And I was like, okay. They were like, we can't even just get the stuff into my face hole.
Okay. They're lovely stainless steel, and they have lids for when we take them out to the pool.
so classy. I was like, wait a minute, don't take me back to Ohio right now. Okay.
I mean, I'm from Michigan, so I have drink wine out of solo
That's a
cups.
good Midwest cup right there.
Classy is the operative word.
And we take them to the beach, and they're actually really nice when you're drinking a cold wine because there's insulation.
For sure.
Well, and with small children, sippy cup is always ideal if you're traveling around.
I love it. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you all to Sonja. She has a wine empire, and I'm not exaggerating. She is the winemaker and owner of Casa Dumetz, Clementine Carter, the Feminist Party wines, which we're all drinking tonight. And she also owns a tasting room that is also a craft beer shop called Babby's or Bobby's? Babby's Wine or Beer Emporium, and it's the coolest space. So if you have not been to Los Alamos, you need to get your butt over to Los Alamos and visit Sonja in her tasting room. And we're not Casa Dumetz is her main wine label. I believe that was your first one. We have featured in our wine club Clementine Carter's Graciano, which is like amazing and the coolest wine ever. So we can talk a little bit about that. But before we move on to anything else, I'd love to hear about the Feminist Party and this wine that we all have in our glasses right now.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the Feminist Party was started in 2015. Its first release was in 2017. So it's been a very fascinating evolution in terms of awareness, people's responses, reactions. Its original intention hasn't shifted, but how people have reacted to it has shifted. So in 2015, it was the idea of, let's have a girl party. Everyone's invited to the party, and it's the only blend of grapes that I do. I only source fruit from Santa Barbara, as you know, everyone has mentioned, and as you know, Heather had mentioned. Everyone says that their wine region is the best and most beautiful, and they're all right, and we are as well. And that's why this is just the most ideal zone to do so many beautiful things. So the Feminist Party is the only blend of different grapes that I work with. And it's literally a blend of all of the vineyards that I work with. And depending on the vintage, it's about 15 different vineyards only in Santa Barbara. And so it's really kind of representative of Santa Barbara in general and the beauty that we have here. And so, you know, the idea is radical inclusion because everyone's invited to the party and we all work better when we work together. And so the idea started in 15. By the time we get at all of the legal stuff and the label and all of this, you know, vineyard sourcing and everything else and approvals, the first vintage was 2016 and the first release was the fall of 2017. And I mean, 2017 feels like 1,000 years ago, but it was at the height of #MeToo and Time's Up. And so everyone sort of thought that it was a response to that, you know, like a marketing response. And I was like, it doesn't work that fast, you know? And so the shift has been very interesting. When we first released it on the market, women would come in and be like, yay, I'm so excited. And their husbands would be like, well, what the hell am I drinking? And I'd be like, I think you're drinking what she's drinking, you know? And then it'd just be like really interesting shift. People wouldn't really know like how to respond to it or how to behave. Or really what to say. Some women would say like, I can't believe you're politicizing wine. And I say, I'm not politicizing wine, you're politicizing wine. We're talking about a girl party. I didn't say anything about politics, you know? And so in these last 3 years, it's been really, really, really interesting. People be like, oh my God, the wine is actually really good. And I'm like, yeah, you can't put that label on it and like throw out garbage. Like it has to be amazing, you know? And so again, all the efforts, and it's the same intention with everything else that I do, that's all blended into that wine. And so the interesting thing is that it shifted. People felt very open and felt very, it was very easy for them to just come in and make comments, rude comments, particularly men of a certain age, about the label and about the wine. And that has shifted a lot in the last number of years. And on the one hand, I never want to silence anyone. I mean, the whole experience that we try and create here is about an open forum and open conversation. You know, we say world peace one bottle at a time, because when you sit and you have a glass of wine and you're sitting next to someone across the table, generally your phones are out, you're engaging in conversation, and you're open to listening a little more intently than you would otherwise. And so I never want to silence anyone. Everyone's voice is always valid and needs to be heard. And yet, if we can be more mindful along the way, before we just start spurting out something, I think that has been a really beautiful shift in terms of awareness, you know, people telling their stories, people sharing their experiences, and people listening, which is the #1 point in sharing. And that's been really, really interesting, again, to see the level of mindfulness that has evolved throughout these years, and people sort of expressing things in a little more sensitive way. So I'm hopeful for that. Sorry about that. I kept trying to turn it off, but it's not working. But yeah, that's the Feminist Party. And so it was 16, 17, 18. We just released the 19. It's the largest production that I do of all of the labels and all of the wines that I make, which is not saying much. I mean, it's 400 cases. Overall, I'm a little over 2,000 cases, and I've just slowly kind of grown from, you know, like Gretchen was saying, like 200 cases to now. This is my 16th vintage. It seems kind of fascinating. And Los Alamos is really sort of, you know, I call Los Alamos the vortex of love. It has the right amount of right and the right amount of wrong, and it's still really funky. And it's, you know, it's a really fascinating place. Everyone feels like they've discovered it for the first time. You know, they can find parking, and now, since, you know, I'm sure everyone's sort of experiencing new visitation from different people, and their awareness it's been really lovely to kind of see. So now we're now in the tasting room, but unfortunately we're all just outside in the patio. Not unfortunately, thankfully there's a space, you know, but yeah, that's the story.
That's awesome. So I think I'm kind of setting you up to answer the question that I think I know how you're going to answer, but I wrote this question out specifically for your wine being labeled the Feminist Party. And I think I know what you're going to say, but I feel like it needs to be said. So tell me about your ideal customer for this wine. And then I also want to bring up the amount of vineyards you source from for this blend. And it's amazing. It really kind of stands behind your like radical inclusion. So tell me about your customer. Who did you have in mind when you made this wine?
That's such an amazing question, because the original customer has evolved, right? And not even sort of through my intention. What I envisioned versus who that person is now are totally different. You know, I had ideally wanted it to always be sort of something that you would say, oh, that looks fun, that looks interesting, and I want to share it with my friends. And so, you know, we could talk about, you know, women 30 to 50, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But really it was, I wanted men to equally grab this bottle. You know, I wanted it to sort of be in my head like the alternative version of The Prisoner, right? People are like, oh, that's cool, and they grab it, right? People like The Prisoner flies off the shelf. No one knows where it's made, what grapes are in it, who the winemaker is, what their production, like no one has any concept of anything about that wine. And so that's not my intention, but it's the idea of like to catch your eye and to be flashy and to make you move towards it. That was the original intention. And so in that, you know, I worked with a designer named Andrew Harner. He's awesome. He does a lot of work for Patagonia. And he you know, I worked with him and I said, listen, I have this idea and this is what I want, but I want it to be attractive and not off-putting. So there's also a wine label, if anyone's seen it, called Machete. Has anyone seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the wine might be amazing, but because the label is just so, it's just a little disturbing to me that that's sort of what we do to like sell wine. Hold on a second. Can you hold on a second, please? I'm sorry. Can you hold on 1 second, you guys?
Yeah, of course. I will go ahead and ad-lib here. I find the difference between really cool, intricate labels and the quality of the wine. I think that we're kind of coming to this precipice where we're joining like all the goodness all together all at the same time. And traditionally, I feel like the cooler the wine label, the flashier it is on the shelf just to get grabbed and the wine's kind of shit. But I do think, and this is a really great example of it being a really cool, flashy wine label, as well as being a really high quality wine.
And I guess this was, the whole thing was sort of, it was the idea that it was like the antithesis to the Machete, right? Not that there's any kind of marketing power or any of that stuff behind any of this, right? It's just like, let's hope we get the word out, So in no way am I like of a delusion that like I'm on that scale in any way, shape or form, but that was kind of the intention of like to draw your attention and not be off-putting, but make you want to go in a little further. And so in the beginning, people would be like, oh my God, I love the label, I'll take it. And I would be upset, I'd be like, well, you didn't even taste it. Like I worked so hard on the inside. And people would be like, why do you care why they're buying the wine? Like they're buying the wine. And so, it's a fascinating sort of idea of, how you invest your time and energy and what you want people to respond to. But, it's the other thing about wine and everything else. I mean, you have to put your work out there and see where it goes, right? You can only control so much. You only know like, okay, here you go. And you have to let loose and let sort of the marketplace and the freedom.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm curious, do you sell this outside the state? Just because I have like a bajillion people in New York City that will want to buy the wine because of the label, but I will tell them that the wine is delicious.
It's fantastic wine.
Thank you. No, I ship to all states. I'm licensed. I do sell in the Metro DC area. I do sell in other places in California and in Michigan. And right now we're going to start selling in I think North Carolina soon. But there's not that much, again, wine is a fascinating business to be in. They say it's true, if you want to make $1 million, you have to start with 10. I have in no way, shape or form made $1 million, but the investment, I'm very conservative in terms of growth. And so particularly now with, the idea of COVID, it's the idea that I really only trust as much as I know that I can truly sell through our direct-to-consumer network, and anything else is gravy. I'm like, yes, all day long. You want it? Great, no problem. And here you go. But it's complicated and expensive and takes a lot of hard work. So yeah, I would be thrilled to sell, but I only grow as much as the market will bear. So yeah, and they can buy it online on the website, and yeah, we
awesome.
should.
Thank you. I will be sending out the link to all my feminists here.
That's very nice. Thank you. That's
Put the link in the chat for anyone. It just takes you directly to Sonja's homepage. But of course you can head over to the shop very easily, and the Feminist Party Blend is there. Okay, so I have just a couple more questions. So I
have a quick question. Sorry.
Yes, please go for it.
Hi, Sonja. Nice to see you. Does your blend change on this every year? Is this the first vintage of it? I'm sorry, I'm not in the fold on if there's more, but
yeah,
previous vintages. But I would love to know, like, is it a formula, not a formula, because I know that's not how you are as a winemaker, but do you look for certain percentages of Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre? Is this something that you want to continuously be making, or is it kind of what comes to you and what works in the winery makes this blend? And sorry, Geena, if that took your question out of your mouth. But
no, this is the point of these things. I'm so happy that you interrupted me and asked. I want everyone to do that.
Yeah, I definitely love the blend to be on par, if not a little more Mourvedre than Grenache. This is 50, this is equal parts Mourvedre and Grenache, and then Syrah. So that's the goal. Sometimes last Virgin was a little more Mourvedre. The 18 was a little more Mourvedre than Grenache. This one's equal parts. So that's the goal. And then in terms of figuring it, it's always Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. One year it had Graciano, only because Graciano at that time was Mourvedre. It wasn't Graciano, so that was the kicker. But the new 19 doesn't have any Graciano in it. I really kind of want to sort of remain true to the core of that blend. Did I answer the question? Yeah, and the way that I blend wines might be conventional or unconventional, I'm not quite sure. And all the vineyards that I choose to work with have a direct purpose and a goal kind of immediately, which is why I work with that spot. And so it's either single vineyard or it's going to go towards a blend. And then, you know, as we all know, vintages are erratic. And so depending in the end, what in the end comes in number of barrels for XYZ. And then again, it's based on what's selling, what am I interested in making. Like rosé, I thought that people would tire of rosé, but that is not even close. I mean, every year I keep like making less and less rosé, and it's like the first thing that sells out. It's like the most mind-blowing thing on the planet. I don't make that much rosé. I mean, I made 225 cases, and it was just like gone. And it was yummy, but I don't think it was like the greatest rosé on the planet. I mean, it was good, but people just like, they love it. And it's so crazy and exciting because, you know, you can put ice cubes in it, you can sip it by the pool from a straw, like you can do anything you want. Like, I love that aspect of it, which is so fun. But so I will, you know, I have an idea of how much I want to make of each varietal that I make. And that's also based on the tonnage that I work with. And then in the end, you know, I'll sort of navigate those things. And then the pieces I will put together as the feminist party. And then I'll make the blend and I'll think, oh, does this work? Does it not work? And sometimes it doesn't work. And then I have to go back and like pull back a little or move back a little. And so then that's the starting point. And then I tweak it from there. But yeah.
It's delicious.
Thank you. Thank you. It's fun. Yeah, I mean, then that's sort of the point. Like, the whole point for particularly this wine for me is, and most of the wine, all of the wines I make, not most of them. I mean, I want it to be delicious. That's the number one goal, right? It's got to be delicious. And I never want it to remove you from the conversation. The whole point is to like sit and hang and talk. And if we're like navigating pencil lead and you know, all this other stuff, which again has its place and is so important and valuable, you know. And I say like everything that we do, we spend every waking moment of our lives like deciding what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and when we're going to do it, and you know, it's like how we're going to invest. And yet that's for us to know, you know, that's for us to concentrate on. Everyone else has their priority and everyone else has their expertise. And so when people share a bottle, that to me is like the most treasured time. And so I want it to be just so like, yum, I'll have some more. And let me tell you about my day. And oh my God, this happened. And what a jerk, he did blah, 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 right? I mean, I want it to be an easy flow. And then you could just like keep pouring it and pretty much the wine's gone. You don't even remember what happened. So that's fun for me.
Yeah, I love that you noted that we're gonna get like bogged down by pencil lead. And if you don't know, she's talking about like a tasting note. And I don't know if anyone's noticed, but we haven't really talked about tasting notes in this tasting, which is interesting. But I'm okay with that. And for the last year or two, I've really strayed away from being like, let's talk about what we taste in this wine. And there's a number of reasons why I've done that. But I think the main one is because it's so subjective, and like every single bottle is different. I mean, wine is alive. Wine has a mind of its own. One bottle can be different from the next. One barrel is completely different from the next. And I feel like you're really putting the wine in a box. If you say, I taste blackberries and cracked black pepper. And of course, those are really great tools for deep diving, learning into like what differentiates a specific wine from the next. But I stopped talking about tasting notes. I'm happy if you ever have any questions about, what do you experience? Of course, we always have those answers right in our back pocket. And it is such a fun way to experience wine. But I love that none of us have really talked about what we're talking about. And
is that because your husband isn't on this? Because he loves tasting notes.
Oh my God, he'll talk about tasting notes all day. And that's so cool, because it speaks to, I've been managing wine tasting rooms for the last 7 or 8 years, and he's a little bit more on the consumer end, and he's jazzed, and all he wants to do is talk about wine, and he'd probably hate that I'm saying this, so no one tell. But I think that really speaks to volumes, because he's almost on that end and I'm over here. And it is such a really cool, inviting experience for me to not intentionally be putting my tasting notes on him or anyone else. And that, I think, has been such a great tool, and also a great tool for me in terms of education, because I learn so much from him, because he has such a different palate than I do, as does everyone. And so when he's like, I taste brambleberry, I'm like, I don't even know what the hell a brambleberry looks like, but also like, cool, now I want to go taste one, and now I want to taste that next to the wine. And I think it is such an amazing tool. But I think us, and I'm including myself because I am a wine retailer and a wine educator, that I think it's really cool that we are no longer pushing what we're experiencing out of the wines on anyone else, and we're inviting in from our consumers and our
vibe and feeling. And that's, I 1,000 times I cannot tell you every day, oh, do you have any Riesling? And I'll say, no, but I have a Grenache Blanc, let me give you a sip. And they're like, oh, I don't know. And they'll taste it. They'll be like, oh, okay, that's great, I'll take it. And I'm like, do you have any Chardonnay? No, Chardonnay, Chenin. Let's just go through the list of things. People are like, oh, do you have that? And I'll say, no, but try the Grenache Blanc. And they're like, oh, yay, great, I'll take it, right? And so it's the idea of, how do we, again, going back to this bottle, like, how do we make it so inclusive that everybody feels comfortable just talking about it? And that's been one of the really fascinating things of having the beer and the wine kind of side by side, is seeing how people that buy and react and drink beer and cider versus wine. It's like the most ridiculously different experiences sometimes. People will be like, oh, I have an IPA. Oh, okay. And then they'll take it. They don't care what hops are in it. They don't care who makes it. They don't care any of those things, right? They want it to be delicious. But like all of these details, and to that end, like all of those details are so important to the people making those decisions, and why we want to make that, right? Like that's why we exist. And so those are so valuable to us. And so, when we're tasting wine, like when we have the gathering here, I think, Gretchen, we had your Gruner. Was it in January?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was in January.
Yeah. And so that, in that experience, it's like, we want to talk about this stuff, because that's what we're doing, But if we were at a club, we're not going to be like, oh yeah, do you taste like lime in here? Like, drink it, you know?
So the soil on this.
Yeah, totally. Was this sand? God, it must be all sand, you know? The thing's really, really important to us, and yet I'm still always looking for ways to kind of bridge that connection so everybody's comfortable. One of the things I've been using lately is people be like, oh, I don't really know that much about wine, so I don't know if I should have some wine. And I said, do you know about hamburgers? And they'll be like, what? And I said, well, you don't go to a burger joint and be like, actually, I don't really know about hamburgers, so I'm not going to have the Kobe beef burger. You're going to like get the burger and be like, you like it or you don't like it. Like, you're the one who's ingesting it and enjoying it, right? Like, I shouldn't tell you, well, when you have the Kobe, like, this is what you're going to taste, and this is what you should have, and this is what you should do. You're just going to like eat it and enjoy it, you know? And so I'm always like racking my brain to figure out like, how do we make it important and valuable and fun and accessible? Like, that's how I spend my days, for better or worse.
I just really quick, I want to chime in to what you were just saying, Sonja. I was just having a conversation with someone today, a virtual assistant that I'm hoping to hire. And she was, you know, she just started working in the wine industry, but she's still like consumer status. And I told her, I was like, I want to hire you because of that, purely because like, I feel as someone who's been in the wine industry for so long, sometimes it's almost like I'm too close to it. And so it's like, I can't see the forest for the trees. And so I want to have her and bring in a fresh new perspective to my marketing and how I help my clients market, because she's going to be able to see the forest as well as the trees. You know, she'll be able to bring in that that consumer perspective as someone who just likes drinking wine because it's delicious, rather than me like picking out like the minutia of, you know, oh, how long was this skin fermented? Oh, is this carbonic maceration? And, you know, and speaking, Geena, to you, is my husband Bobby is in the beer industry, and so he doesn't drink wine. And so what I love to do, one of my favorite things to do is like stick a glass of wine under his nose and be like, what do you smell? And then he'll say it, he'll tell me what he smells, and it's so like, I'm like, that's what I was trying to put my finger on. And it's purely because I'm too close to it sometimes, and I need to like zoom out and be able to see things differently, and see things from the perspective of somebody who isn't like so immersed in wine. And so I don't know, I think that would be my like encouragement to anyone, is to make sure that you're regularly forcing yourself to zoom out and bring in new perspectives on wine.
I totally agree. And that's like, I question myself. I actually get really intimidated when he starts talking about taking notes, because all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap, I didn't experience that. I was just enjoying the wine. Like I didn't realize we were in class right now, but it is such a great tool. And just as a fun side note, so neither of us went to school for wine, meaning my husband and I, but we did do our WSET level 1, and we plan on doing more when COVID gets less weird. But we tied for the second highest score, and the instructor was like, were you guys cheating? Like, you can just, I won't report you, but like, how did that happen? And I was like, I don't know, like, just, and we got different answers correct and different answers wrong. So it's so subjective. I mean, that just brings me, all of us, back to the point where it's like, you know, we all experience wine differently, and that's pretty funny. So just to tie it all back, I did want to give Sonja a huge compliment. And I haven't ever expressed this to you because I thought that it would be dramatic by bringing it up tonight. But I wanted to tell you that I was inspired to do, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this Women in Wine series is from your speaker series. And so if you're just learning about Sonja and her wines, she does, I don't know if they're running right now. I know times are weird, but
Not nervous. I've been way overwhelmed. But usually now we've been Zooming them, yeah.
Okay, good. Well, in the future, now that Harvest is kind of coming to an end, I encourage everyone to go to her website, and she has a tab on her website that says experience, and there's all kinds of amazing education there. And if you scroll down to her speaker series, she has her own level of interviewing, and she talks to all kinds of different people throughout the industry. And I was so inspired by the one that I tuned in on. I think it might have been one of your last, but it's when you talked to Justin, this sweet, amazing woman who is, I think, the assistant winemaker for Lumen. Yeah. So I tuned into that and I was like, oh my God, we got to start talking. And so that was one of the big inspirations to this series now. And so I want to thank you for being an inspiration for me.
One of the fascinating things for me, you know, again, 16 years on, you know, when I first started, like these women weren't here, like Heather and Kimmery and Gretchen and Geena. I mean, you guys weren't here. And again, if it wasn't for all of the amazing male mentors in this region, I just think it's a testament to Santa Barbara in general, you know, how open and amazing everyone is. And so if it wasn't, I always say, first of all, you have to be dedicated, you have to show up, and you have to do the work regardless, right? I mean, you can't mess around. And so once you show that dedication and your commitment, then like people take you seriously. And so, you know, I mean, the list of mentors is just, you know, a million, not to mention Billy Wathen and, you know, everyone else. And so, but, you know, this group of women was not here, you know, and so it's so inspiring to me to see them come together and be allies and share experiences and join together and really talk. You know, on the one hand, I always think that safe space is really it is very important. And then on the other hand, you know, they're men that they don't know what's going on in these conversations, you know, and so we need to keep talking and tell them how we feel, what they're doing, and how they can improve and we can improve, you know. And so again, it's been so inspiring to sort of see them come together. And so I just want to keep getting to know them because they're awesome. So
I totally agree. So that just brings me into my second to last question, is my women in wine question. What does it mean to you to be a woman in wine, and what differentiates your experience from anyone else's?
I think my answer, I mean, answers always evolve. And I think lately it has been to be an example, right? Self-funded owner, entrepreneur. You know, I work really hard and I work primarily with women in the tasting space. And men just don't apply for hospitality here. I don't know. And that's totally okay because I work with such an awesome group of women that, you know, like we talk about wine, I always say, like, you don't have to know a damn thing about wine, you know, like we will guide you and you will learn along the way, but like you have to like people and you have to like hospitality, and that's the number one goal. And so everything else kind of, I allow people extreme freedom to be who they are and express themselves in their way. There's very few rules besides customer first, unless the customer is an asshole, and then they don't have to be first. So, I mean, like, you know, there's rules and then there's rules. And so I think, you know, now that's been really important to me and evident to sort of nurture some folks along and just sort of give them confidence and strength to kind of make their decisions, because life is, you know, I know, Heather, you wanted to run a vineyard, but I also wanted to like run UN. And so here I am in Los Alamos, you know, so it's, life has a crazy path and you either take it or you don't take it. And who's to say that anything is right or wrong? You just have to adjust with it and make it the best.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think to me it's really important to kind of keep doing that and showing strength and confidence. I also came from a family where my mom and dad both, I'm super fortunate, they are my #1 champion. You know, my husband is my #1 champion. You know, I mean, it's all about like freedom and expression and keep doing what you need to do and don't let anybody stop you. And that's been kind of embedded in me from a really young age. So I think if I have an advantage, it's knowing that if you're going to get in my way, I'm just going to find another way to do it. So that's about it, really.
I love that. Sonja, where can we find your tasting room? Where can we buy more of your wine? Where can we follow you on social media? Where can we stalk you because you're amazing?
Well, you can, social media for Bobby's is all Heather's doing lately. So just follow Heather. At Bobby's Beer Emporium for Bobby's is the beer space. Casa Dumetz is at Casa Dumetz. Wines, the website is casadumetzwines.com. Our tasting room is right in the middle of Los Alamos, essentially. People come to town, they'll be like, where are you? I don't see you. And I'm like, I didn't go far enough. So it's kind of it's a one-horse town, and so you gotta just keep your eyes open and you will see us. And that's you know, online, and call us, and we're always answering the phone. And I'm not so good at social media, but Heather's trying to fix that. So
he's a good one to have your back with, for sure.
Yeah.
So I know it's so late, and you guys, I thought we'd blow through this. I'm so thankful and honored that you all are still here. I have 2 requests for everyone. I would really love to take a cheers picture. If you're okay with it, if we can all just cheers, because Jesus Christ, this has been a crazy week, but also this has been the most amazing virtual tasting. I literally could cry. I mean, so thank you all so much for being here. And so fill up your glasses, and I'm here until everyone stops asking questions. So please continue to ask questions if you have them, but let's just do a super quick cheers, and I will take a screenshot because this is just making my heart explode. So you guys, cheers, happy whatever day it is. I've lost track already. Thank you to these amazing, amazing women. 1, 2, 3, cheers. Hey, thank you.
I have a quick question for Sonja, if we have time.
Yeah.
Sorry, so many questions. Where is the Robert Ray Vineyard?
Robert Ray Vineyard is off Santa Rosa Road. Do you know where Peak Ranch is?
Yep.
So it's literally behind Peak Ranch, above Peak Ranch.
Okay.
It's a tiny
on the hill behind.
On the hill behind, yeah. Like if you go all the way up, no, I'm sorry, Almarosa. So this Peak, and then it's Almarosa, right? And so if you're like at the top of Robert Ray, again, it's 12 acres, so it's a tiny spot, but it's up above them both. And if you're at the top, you can see both Peak and Almarosa. And so it's a little winding road that goes up there, and it's awesome. It's 12 acres. Chris King farms it. It's all organically farmed. The family is just adorable.
Awesome.
And I love that spot. Yeah, it's really cool. That's where that is.
Thank you for asking that question. I couldn't find it, and it was too late, and I didn't want to.
On the Santa Barbara map currently, I think it's Robert Williams in the on the Santa Rita AVA map. I think because they've had to change their name because of some kind of contentious thing with naming. But it says Robert Williams, and it looks massive. Like there's like 3 different spots. It's like the tiniest little spot. But it's awesome. It's great. I mean, and that's one of the things, you know, again, being such a small producer, and that's why it's so fun to hear Gretchen like work with Piazza and Henrik's, you know, vineyards and stuff. I mean, it's like, all the vineyards, like they need the big guys and they need the little guys. Someone can go in and get like 50 tons, but there's still going to be like 2 tons hanging out. And so they have to they need us to kind of navigate that stuff. And yet that said, again, 16 years in, I really am looking for collaborative partners. I'm looking for someone that we can really have a conversation and have a voice with. And so I've worked with vineyards. Oh yeah, we'll get to it. Oh, well, I promise tomorrow, and then it never happens. And so it's there's too much good fruit out there to navigate that stuff, and we pay a lot of money for that. And so I really want to work with people. It's all about people first. And so I try and work with smaller spots that we can really have a conversation and collaborate and try new things each vintage. Or let's this year, what do you think? Okay, great. I mean, and obviously farming is very expensive, so we all have to give a little. But that's my goal now. So I love these little intimate spots.
I think for me, connection is what wine is all about. And if we're not having that in some form or another, then we're really missing the point. And it starts in the vineyard and goes all the way to settings like this. And if you're not experiencing that with your person who's managing your vineyard, you're not experiencing that in your winery, you're not experiencing that in your tasting room, you're not experiencing that with your customers that are enjoying your wine, then you're really missing the point. And you can taste it. I mean, I would say this is, and I don't mean this in a slight to you, this is probably one of my favorite wines I've ever had of yours. I think it's very beautifully balanced. I absolutely love it. It's really shining and showcasing itself really beautifully. So thank you for sharing it. And of course, obviously I love the label as myself a feminist, but thank you for having it and for showcasing it and having these little teeny tiny vineyards and giving them a name, because it is important. And for people that don't understand that, when a big vineyard or a big producer can come in and take 100 tons that a vineyard produces 115, that those 15 tons that are left are still really important, and they need a place and they have a purpose, and they need to be showcased and expressed. And so I appreciate all the people that take the 1 ton lots and make them into something really unique and special, and take the 2 ton and 3 tons and really create something that is unique. And it's not a 30 ton lot, or even something that is radically different than that. It's hands-on, very in tune fermentation that gives you an expression of what it is, and that's what I taste with Gretchen. Yeah, with your hands. I mean, that's what I taste. What I taste with your wines is what you see when you look at Heather's pictures. It's it's all about that unique experience and that connection. And so I applaud all 3 of you, and I say thank you for allowing me to be a part of tonight. But just the wines are beautiful.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Any other questions? Dusty, you sounded like you had some questions earlier.
Or just the cat.
Dusty?
Do you want to see me again? He's over there on top of Karin right now. But no, I just want to say, I try and show up for all these things, and I try and be supportive. But the real deal is getting your credit card out and buying the wines and supporting the businesses. You can repost stuff, you can show up for these things, and you can be supportive in name, but these are businesses, and in order for them to be successful, you need to buy the wines. And that's what I try and do. Not a lot of winemakers or other vintners buy my wines, but I try and buy wines that I like, and I come from the consumer side, and I try and be supportive in a meaningful way, and that is to buy the wines. And I just think that we need to focus on the issue, and that to make these small brands successful. And by buying the wines, by doing the most meaningful thing, by putting your dollars where your mouth is, that's the best thing that you can do. So when you come out of this session and you're like, wow, this rosé is really good, or wow, this, GSM is really good, buy the wine. Get online, go and buy 3 bottles or buy 6 bottles or whatever you can afford, and support and be that channel for change, and be that channel for a meaningful contribution to what's happening in Santa Barbara. And like you said, Geena, I mean, Santa Barbara, for sure, you were totally right, has the highest percentage of women winemakers, and they do a fantastic job, and they shouldn't be overlooked. And it's not lost on me when I come into a situation and I've won the genetic lottery and everyone takes me seriously right away. I've poured right next to Karin, and Karin gets questions and gets critiques that I don't get because I'm intimidating and she's not. So people feel free to question the wines and question what she does and question the validity of her intellect. And it's ridiculous. And I mean, I've seen it firsthand. And so, I mean, we need to realize that the focus needs to be on promoting the brands and making the brands work. And by supporting with your dollars, by supporting with your consumership, that helps tremendously. I have a lot of people, even on my side, that say, oh, I just want to support your brand, I'm going to repost your stuff. Like, I don't give a shit if you repost my stuff. Buy my wine. That's what I give a shit about. Buy the wine. Make that purchase, tell your friends, come back, be a loyal customer, and that helps. That really, really, really helps. So
just notice that you feel comfortable saying that because you're a man, I will say. Like, if a woman said that, she'd be called a bitch.
Yeah, totally. I get it. And I've seen it. I mean, it's not okay.
Or cocky.
No, but it's such a good point to make.
I appreciate you saying that. Like, don't take me wrong. I just like this.
Oh no, totally. I know I'm the biggest asshole on the planet. I get it. I'm male and I'm a bombastic asshole. I get it. But I mean, when women do this, like you said, like they get ostracized, and it's not right. The whole thing is just, the dynamic isn't right, but you can write it with your dollars. Like, you can write it by making these businesses successful.
Yeah, 100%.
Sorry, I'm over here nodding through everything you said, but when you called yourself an asshole, I spent my morning on a diversity and inclusion seminar, and everything they said was, we need the white males and females to speak up for diversity and inclusion. So no, you're doing exactly what you should be doing.
I do.
Yeah. Like, we need you to speak up for women.
I do.
Yeah.
Well,
and Dustin, you have a really unique perspective because you work alongside your partner Karin. Like, especially you, we need your perspective because of that, purely because you have this person that you are witnessing firsthand. Not a lot of people have that, like I don't have, my husband's not next to me every single time one of these situations happen where I get put in a situation where I'm being questioned because I am female. Like, he's not there to witness that every single time that happens, but you get to be there. And so that's really important. And you are in a very great position to share your experience of what Karin is experiencing, and like being like, oh shit, yeah, I am privileged because of this, because I'm witnessing, my partner experiencing something completely different 2 feet away from me.
Right, exactly. From the same person that just came to my table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very important. I'm glad that you are speaking up and sharing that.
And you're not an asshole, Dusty. You're here.
No, you're not an asshole.
You're here. So I put the link to Dusty's website as well down in the chat. So if anyone wants some really amazing wines, we just stocked up. We got like a full case from him. So a couple of those bottles are already gone. So okay.
I have some winemaking things too. Hold on.
Yeah.
So Gretchen, unmute yourself for a second. You said that the fermentation on this was really slow. Like, this rosé has like firing acidity. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the pH is on it, but if this rosé is like super low pH, that can really stall fermentation, and especially if you cold ferment it. So, I mean, but it's really good. It's really awesome. And I'm really surprised that you were able to get the bitterness out of a Syrah rosé that can kind of come through sometimes. Even with an early pick, it's a fine job. Like, it's really good.
Thanks. And totally, like, I think also the slowness of that fermentation actually helped it become so complex, because it really has so many layers that rosé very rarely has. And I think that the fact that it took 6 months to do it really really.
And I'm gonna guess it didn't go through ML.
No, definitely. And but also that vineyard struggles with nutrition, just with, like I said, it's super beach sand soil, so it's just kind of ends up being hopefully it'll go through this year.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's so many like Burgundian and California and Chardonnay makers that like put so much emphasis on drawing out fermentation as long as they possibly can to get that complexity. So yeah, it's a really good job. It's
it's wonderful, Gretchen. Yeah. Beautiful. I love an acid bomb.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm into it. And your Gruner Veltliner. Was nodding my head vigorously as you were talking about your Gruner Veltliner.
Well, and you guys will have to come and check out the new stuff too. It's also all super acid driven, fun wines, limestone soil. So
I want to come check out the new space.
Yeah.
If you're
I'm up there all the time, and I want to see the new horse, and archery looks compelling.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Gretchen, she does it all. Like, I'm her best friend, so I'm gonna be the advocate that she's not. And sorry to be this person like in the screen with her, not have my name. My name is Timmery. I'm also a woman in wine, but in all honesty, that what Gretchen is doing is really phenomenal, and it's really unique with really cool sites, and it's not indifferent to what Sonja is doing, but I would say that they have different perspectives on winemaking, and I think that's what makes winemaking so unique. And Dusty, same with your stuff. Like, I haven't been fortunate enough to try the other women winemakers that are on this Zoom, but
we'll be seeking you out.
With the exception of Sunshine, we've had many conversations about wine, and her project is very new, so I'm excited to taste her wines as they're ready. But in all honesty, she's very humble, and her wines are phenomenal. If you have a chance to try the 17 Gruner, please try it. If not, then the 18 is just as good. But at the end of the day, like, women in wine are a very unique position because of their palate and what they can do. And what you taste is very different than a male palate. And I don't mean that in any slight to any male winemakers. I've worked with numerous male winemakers. It's just that you taste different things and you express different things, and in winemaking you are able to take that and really use it in a different perspective. And so what we're tasting in Sonja's wine, what we're tasting in Gretchen's wine, is a very female perspective of winemaking, and I'm very grateful to be able to enjoy that, and to say that acid bombs are a big part of my life, and it's very happy. So I appreciate both of them for that.
Yeah.
If we're talking about women in wine, I'm gonna tout Geena. For those of you who don't know, they have a wonderful Pinot called
Delicious Pinot.
That she bottled as a, what's it called? Negociant.
Yeah, so oh god, I just got so emotional. So Dusty, going back to Dusty, it's probably the amount of wine I've had. The Dusty, this is such a cool story, and it's a quick story, so I won't drive anyone crazy, but Erin and I wanted to bottle wine for a long time, and it just makes sense as a retailer to have your own label. It really helps build your brand. And this May, Erin and I were scheduled to go on a 2-year late honeymoon. We got married 2 years ago, and we were so excited. We were going to go to Spain and France, and we were going to drink our way through both countries. And of course, COVID ruined that, as well as everyone else's plans for travel. And so we were kind of bummed about that, but it was just right at the same time where we were ordering a bunch of wine for Dusty, or through Dusty. And he walks into our backyard and he's like, do you guys want to like bottle some wine? And we're like, yes. And so he had stumbled across some really fantastic wine coming from the Spear Vineyard, made by another amazing female winemaker that hopefully we will get on this in the future. Her name is Kat Gaffney, although now she got married, so it's Kat Neenan. And Dusty had this barrel and he's like, I'll help you and just say yes. And so we said yes. And so we bottled a barrel of Pinot coming from the Spear Vineyard in Santa Rita Hills. It's a 2018. And it's amazing. It's 25 cases, almost exactly, that we bottled, and we literally have like less than 10 cases left. It's on our website. It's amazing if you want to buy it. And yeah, so that was our first, and we just met with him last weekend, and we're going to be bottling a 2019 Pinot of the same vintage, and we're also breaking into Syrah. So we're doing a 10 case bottling of 2018 Syrah from the Spear Vineyard, and I think another barrel of the 2019 Syrah. So more exciting stuff to come. It's just really cool collaborating with these amazing people, and this is like the peak of this industry. And of course we've all had, you know, challenging experiences, but this is, I think, one of those great, beautiful moments where
right here.
one of my friends, like,
You did a ricochet.
that I wanted to do, but wasn't quite sure how to do it. And Dusty and Karin just provided like the perfect, like, here you go, we're helping you. And so, yeah, it's really good. I'm proud of it just because I have my name on it, but it was made by an amazing winemaker, and it was a collaborative bottling through Dusty and Karin. And so it's a happy wine.
And it has a sick label.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also,
that's what I was going to say, by a female artist.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
just female wine all around.
And it's called Pioneer.
It's also, Spaniard's also certified organic. So if that's another added benefit of you purchasing this wine, that vineyard is certified organic. And that was one of the last vineyards that I helped certify organic when I worked for Coastal Vineyard Care. So
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Added benefit there for you.
Basically a salad in a bottle, you guys, really.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you. I'm Taryn. My friend Miley and I joined and heard about this through a friend of mine. We're both on the East Coast, so it's getting super late, but this has been so fun for me, and I think just a nice break for everyone. You can hear New York City behind, so sorry about the noise, but thank you for sharing everything. It was so nice.
Does New York know the election yet?
Oh my gosh, no, but there are helicopters, sirens, really there's big protests right now, but yeah.
Georgia is 200 votes closer.
It's crazy.
I work for CNN. I would like to pretend I'm on my phone, but I'm not. I'm gonna get on the TV.
Also, Taryn, we're fellow Hobokenites. So
oh my goodness, I love it. Okay, I thought Miley and I were the only ones on the East Coast.
No, we live in LA now.
But okay.
No, my whole family was here. Now they turned their video off. They're also my biggest fans, and they're from Philadelphia.
Aww.
Yay, man!
So many East Coasters.
Love it. Big night for Philly too, or Pennsylvania.
God, let's hope.
Hey.
Pennsylvania.
There's Mom.
Oh, she's back.
Well, you guys,
you're on mute.
You're on mute, Mom.
Mom.
That's actually a good thing that we're
down here counting votes.
Well, you guys, I could be on here all night. I encourage everyone to
thanks, Jeepsy.
Thank you so much, Geena. Thank you so much for inviting me on here, and for all of us. Thank you so much.
Cheers, you guys.
Have a good night. Thank you all.
Happy Thursday.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Badass
Love
women.
you guys. Thank you so much.
I don't know how to. I think you click on yourself.